Do you guys remember for effed up news? I did a story about this column: California should abolish parenthood in the name of equity. And I clipped that portion of effed up news and I made it its own little clip that I put up on the channel the other day. And half of the comments were basically to the effect of, Carlin, this can't be real. This is satire, right? This can't be real. This article is crazy. Go back and watch that clip that I posted the other day. This article is insane. And so this article is actually so insane that people didn't think the article was real. Well, guess what? Exactly the same article showed up in the San Francisco Chronicle. So the article that appeared on Yahoo that I covered, this was in the Ventura County Star, so like a local paper in Ventura County in California. It appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle just the other day. That's crazy. But just in case anyone thinks that this article is satire, I want to show you something that popped up on Twitter today. And it's this clip right here. This was posted by Amy Therese, and it says, we have to break the idea that that kids belong with their parents or kids belong to their families. This is a clip from MSNBC. Now, of course, you guys know I have to switch browsers if we're going to hear sound. So let me just switch browsers real quick. I got it in another browser right over here. Share screen. Chrome tab. Okay. So let's actually listen to this clip. Let me know if you can't hear the sound. Of course, as always, we'll go back to the beginning. I'm going to turn the sound up. All right. Check this out. MSNBC. This is on MSNBC.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
I'm sorry. What? Once we recognize that kids belong to the whole community and not just their households, we start making different investments. Let's just listen to that again, just in case you needed to hear it again to confirm that that article that I showed you was not satire at all. Let's just listen again.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better investments.
You guys see? Do you guys see what they're doing? That seems like a perfectly reasonable statement. Oh, it takes a village to raise everyone. But when you add in the notion, the subtle notion that we need to break free of this idea that kids belong to their parents, I'm sorry, what? That's exactly what that article was saying. It was just saying it in a little bit of a different way, but that was exactly what that article was saying. And I wanted to use that to leapfrog into the next thing we're going to take a look at, which is that they don't want you to know what your kids are learning. So Chris Rufo is doing a great job, as always. He is what a godsend Chris Rufo is. I thought about this a lot. Like, I really think that if Chris Rufo hadn't come along, I would be being much more proactive about doing the type of activism that he's doing, which would suck for me because I don't like doing media. And so like I have always been so grateful that Chris Rufo's doing what he's doing, because that means that I feel like I don't have to, like, he's got that under control. I can kind of come and play around with you guys, and we can do Actively Unwoke, and we can do more grassroots things that don't require me going on Fox News. So I've always been really grateful for him. But what he's doing right now is Chris Rufo is really focusing in on educational transparency. Educational transparency is the idea that teachers have to put their materials online so that parents can actually see what is being taught. And he's trying to get these bills introduced in states across the country. So he was working on banning, quote unquote, banning critical race theory last year. Now he's working on getting bills introduced around forcing teachers to put educational materials online to increase transparency. Next up is going to be cameras in classrooms. Next up, don't think I've forgotten about cameras in classrooms just because Matt Walsh tried to steal my idea. Don't think I've forgotten about it. I'm coming back to it, but it's just going to be like in May. May is the timeline for when I'm going to start pushing for that again. But in the meantime, Rufo's pushing for educational transparency, and the media's catching up. Check out this article that appeared on NBC News today. They fought critical race theory. Now they're focusing on curriculum transparency. Conservative activists want schools to post lesson plans online. Oh no, not that. But free speech advocates warn such policies could lead to more censorship in K through 12 schools. So, guys, who in the chat, let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. Oh, that's nice and big. Who in the chat can tell me what is wrong with this line? Why would it, okay, if we say free speech advocates warn that educational transparency could lead to more censorship, what is wrong with that line? How good have you guys been paying attention to me? I like giving you guys pop quizzes sometimes to keep you on your toes. Who knows what is wrong with the line? Free speech advocates warn that educational transparency could lead to more censorship in K through 12 schools. Just T says it makes no sense to start. Why does it make no sense? Yes, meta step for the win. Schools don't have free speech. More specifically, teachers, when teachers are teaching in public schools, they do not have free speech protections. This has already been ruled on by the Supreme Court, because when they are teaching in public schools, they are agents of the state. They are representative of the government. The greatest trick the teachers' unions ever played was convincing people that teachers are not government employees. Because they are government employees, they do not have free speech protections when they are in the classroom. Therefore, it is not censorship. If we are saying you can teach this, you can't teach that, that is not censorship, because they literally don't have free speech protections. If a teacher wanted to come in and teach the KKK is an amazing organization that everyone should join, would they be able to do that? No. Why? Because we can tell them, no, you're not teaching that stuff. So let's read this article. Let's see NBC's opinion. And guys, please make sure you mount that like button while we're reading the article. I really appreciate it. As state legislatures kick into gear this month, Republican governors and lawmakers who have fought to limit discussions of race in public schools are lining up to support a new aim: curriculum transparency. Lawmakers in at least 12 states have introduced legislation to require schools to post lists of all their teaching materials online, including books, articles, and videos. The teachers of Arizona and the governors of Arizona, Florida, and Iowa, who have previously raised concerns about how teachers discuss racism's impact on politics and society, called for curriculum transparency laws in speeches to their legislators this month. How are teachers and, frankly, the woke left going to explain to the public that they don't want you to see the materials that your kids are learning? How do we think that's going to go? I don't think that's going to go well. So after the governor's election in Virginia, what we saw is that the Democrats lost that governor's election in Virginia almost entirely because of critical race theory. That was the central issue. Parents did not like that critical race theory was being taught in schools. They wanted to have more say, not less, over what their children were learning. And as a result, the citizens of Virginia elected their first Republican governor in 20 years or something like that, in a crazy period of time, specifically over the issue of education. Now, you might think that the Democrats would learn a lesson from that, but no. They literally came out and said, and I covered it on this channel, that not only did they not learn a lesson, they were going to double down on teaching critical race theory in schools. And so now these curriculum transparency bills have come out, and now we literally are going to watch the woke left say, no, you don't get to know what your teachers are teaching in schools. How do they think that's going to play with parents? I don't think that's going to go well. Florida laws should provide parents with the right to review the curriculum used in their children's schools, said Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican, in his State of the State address last week. Some conservative activists say the effort, which has come under fire from Democrats, teachers, and civil liberties advocates, is a potent strategic move to expose and root out progressive ideas from schools. Yes. It's the next move in a fight over critical race theory, the academic concept typically taught in colleges. No. To examine how laws and institutions perpetuate racism, which some conservatives have used to describe ideas in books that they believe are too progressive or political for the classroom. Well, that's not exactly true. In a series of tweets this month, Christopher Rufo, a fellow at the conservative Manhattan Institute, who has been instrumental in drawing opposition to racial sensitivity training. Just a reminder for anyone who needs to hear this at NBC News, critical race theory is not racial sensitivity training. It is not that at all. Said shifting from pushing bans on critical race theory to pushing curriculum transparency bills is a rhetorically advantageous position that will bait the left into opposing transparency. Oh my God, I cannot believe that they literally published it. They literally published that Rufo was baiting them in an article where they're responding by taking the bait. Really think about that for a second. This entire article is literally taking the bait that Chris Rufo planted for them to take, and they are quoting Chris Rufo in the article saying that he's going to bait them into opposing transparency. How little self-awareness does NBC News have? Chris Rufo literally told NBC News that he was going to bait them. And NBC News took the bait and then wrote about the fact that Chris Rufo told them that he was going to bait them in the article. That's amazing. That is an accomplishment. The strategy here is to use a non-threatening liberal value, transparency, to force ideological actors to undergo public scrutiny. Yes. The push for curriculum transparency policy emerged after at least 7 conservative think tanks publicly called on legislators to enact such laws over the last year. 2 of them, the Goldwater Institute and the Manhattan Institute, have published model bills, policies, and resolutions for legislators and school boards to use as templates. The people are going to disagree on a lot of issues, said Matt, the Goldwater Institute's director of education policy. Transparency is something I think that at least allows for that conversation to know what is being taught. Everyone should be able to rally around the fact that we shouldn't be teaching something in secret. And you know what, to be honest with you, I feel like educational transparency is about the most reasonable way to approach this discussion. If critical race theory is really not being taught in K through 12 schools, then why wouldn't they want people to know that? If critical race theory is really just a dog whistle, just this fantasy that conservatives have created, then why wouldn't teachers want to show you that? Why wouldn't the Democrats want to show you that? Look, we're going to put all our education materials online. You can see everything that we're teaching, every book that we're using, every worksheet that we're giving, every lesson that we're teaching. You can see that there's no critical race theory. If they really weren't teaching critical race theory, they would use this as a victory lap. So why don't they want you to see what they're teaching? But teachers, their unions, and free speech advocates say the proposals would excessively scrutinize daily classroom work and would lead teachers to preemptively pull potentially contentious material to avoid drawing criticism. Don't we want teachers to do that? Don't we want teachers to not teach potentially contentious material? That seems like a win to me. Parents and legislators have already started campaigns to remove books dealing with race and genders, which they shouldn't be doing. I'm going to say this every single time the banning of the books issue comes up. This was a stupid thing to start doing in the first place. The only way that I will get on board with banning books is if it depicts actual porn, which there are books in schools that show through comic book actual pornography. I am not okay with that at all. That should not be in schools. I want to be very clear about that. But if books don't have actual pornography in them, we should not be talking about banning them. I'm sorry. We should not be talking about banning them unless they are the most extreme depictions of actual porn. And this is what I told you guys would happen when Moms for Liberty started doing this crap. I was like, watch how the woke left is going to take this. We need to be strategic. I know I don't need to preach to you guys. It just continually boggles my mind how people don't think ahead to the consequences of their actions sometimes. It's important that we call this out, says John, the director of free expression and education at PEN America, a nonprofit group that promotes free speech. It's a shift towards more neutral sounding language, but it's something that is potentially just censorious. Public school teachers do not have free speech protections. Last year, 25 states considered legislation and 9 enacted laws to limit how schools can discuss race and gender as part of a campaign to block critical race theory. PEN America has said that these laws amount to an educational gag order, and it is no less concerned about curriculum transparency proposals, which Friedman said are designed to generate more outrage over lessons on race and gender in school. Why are they teaching about race and gender in school? Why are they teaching this? Why is there more of a focus on race and gender in school than there is on reading and writing and math and learning actual history? And I am not opposed to the teaching of slavery. I think we should teach that slavery happened. I think we should teach about the civil rights movement. I think we should teach about the monumental battles that Black people have overcome in this country. That is not the same thing as teaching race and gender in school. They're not the same thing. Friedman said that the proposals recall tactics conservative activists have used over the past several years to systematically pinpoint college professors and accuse them of a liberal bias. 95% of college professors donate money to the Democratic Party. Maybe it's not 95% specifically, but it is absolutely over 90%. And I think 95% is a good sporting guess. Someone can put the most recent number that's out in the chat if they want, but it is absolutely over 90% of college faculty members donate money to the Democratic Party. There is an absolute liberal bias in universities. We've covered this extensively. It's almost like it's trying to be replicated at a K through 12 level, and it's alarming. While most schools have insisted that they didn't teach critical race theory, they're lying. A new report by UCLA's Institute for Democracy, Education, and Access found that local efforts to restrict schools from teaching or using critical race theory emerged in at least 894 school districts. Dude, that's awesome. Look at this. They're saying this is a bad thing. That's awesome. Local efforts to restrict schools from teaching or using critical race theory emerged in at least 894 school districts, which enroll more than a third of all K through 12 students in this country. Oh, that's a white pill. That is a white pill right there. Oh my God, white pill. Hang on, I'm highlighting that. I'm coming back later for that for a screenshot. That is amazing. 1/3 of all K through 12 students in this country? Epic win. Epic win for everyone that is fought back on any level in your local school districts. That is awesome work, guys. Now, we still have the other 2/3 of the schools left to go, but that is incredible. Think about that for a second. I feel so good about this right now. That is like a single year's worth of effort. 1/3 of all K through 12 students in this country. Are you kidding me? That's awesome. That's really good. That makes me so happy. You guys think I'm never happy and I'm always critical of things. That makes me happy. Thank you, NBC News, for informing me of that statistic. The outrage over critical race theory has resulted in educators being ousted from their jobs. Oh no. Parents becoming suspicious of mental health initiatives and schools burning books or banning books by Black authors. Many curriculum transparency proponents point to a remark by Democrat Terry McAuliffe made in a Virginia gubernatorial debate in September where he said, "I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach." The comment by McAuliffe, who went on to lose the election in Virginia, is trending increasingly blue. Drew swift condemnation from conservatives and is widely seen as a boon for Republican candidates in the state. Republicans nationwide have vowed to keep Republicans nationwide have vowed to keep conversations around critical race theory at the center of their midterm election strategy, and they should. Republicans cannot get distracted. They cannot get distracted by this. They've got to keep the focus on education. If they get distracted by abortion or gay marriage or any of the like conservative, like shiny objects that they all or porn or any of those things, they are going to lose the fight. They have got to stay 100% focused on education. I really hope they do. We reject the notion that parents shouldn't have a say in what their kids are learning in schools, DeSantis said in a speech this week, appearing to refer to McAuliffe's comments. I think that this has further energized parents to say we're part of the process. So NBC is a little perturbed. Oh, look at my state. New Hampshire has indeed introduced an educational transparency bill in the state. We'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll testify at that committee hearing. We'll have to get Rufo to testify. Maybe I'll testify at that committee hearing. We'll see. I'll probably be a little less spicy than I was last time. Last time I testified at a committee thing for the anti-CRT bill, I was purposefully a little bit spicy because I had already submitted them more like even-keeled testimony. And so I was purposely a little bit spicy as an experiment. But maybe I'll be less spicy this time. Let's see. We've got New Hampshire, we've got Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, Colorado, Georgia, and South Carolina. North Carolina, interestingly enough, tried to do this last year and they failed. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So that's what's going on there. We're starting to switch the focus to educational transparency, which I think is going to be a really important fight. Now, that's not to say that people should stop paying attention to critical race theory, okay? Every single parent with children in public schools has got to pay attention to what your kids are learning. You've got to pay attention to their assignments. You've got to pay attention to their reading list. And actually, this is perfect timing because if you go to activelyunwoke.com and you go to live events, I've got a couple things that are going to really help you guys out because Actively Unwoke is more than a book for me. This is a mission. This is about rallying the troops. This is about getting together as community members to all fight back in the ways that we can fight back. I want to build a robust community of warriors who are going into their communities and fighting back in different ways. And we can come up with strategies. We can help support each other. This is going to be fun. I want to make fighting back against the woke fun, something exciting, because the woke suck all of our life out of us. They suck every bit of fun and joy out of life. One of the ways that you can tell if someone is woke, and this is true on the right or the left, because there are woke people on the right. There are even woke people in the anti-woke movement, which is a weird thing in and of itself. But there are woke people on the right and there are woke people on the left. And one of the key things that allows you to tell when someone is woke is they completely lose their sense of humor. They completely lose their joy in life. We're not going to do that. We're going to make fighting back against the woke fun, and we're going to be highly practical about it. So if you go to activelyunwoke.com and you go to the events page, which is activelyunwoke.com/events, I've got a couple webinars coming up that are free. They are completely free. One is going to be on February 1st with me, where I'm going to give a really simple, bare bones explanation of what critical race theory is and why it's bad. I'm going to show you some examples. If you are more advanced about critical race theory, this is probably not the webinar for you, but I bet you have friends and family that have questions. Please share the webinar with your friends and family that are just learning about this stuff. You want to introduce them to it. I'm not going to be YouTube Carlin. I'm going to be more like corporate trainer Carlin. It's going to be a nice even-keeled presentation that's just going to give the facts in a way that's easy to understand, that is easy to pick up on, show examples, stuff like that. So you can register for that right now. And then on February 11th, I have a webinar coming up with Nicole Solis, who is a mom and also a lawyer in Rhode Island, who ended up getting sued by the teachers' unions because she wrote too many public records requests. And what Nicole is going to teach you guys is how to do public records requests. This is a really important thing. Until we get educational transparency bills passed in all 50 states, public records requests are the easiest way for us to find out what the schools are teaching. Nicole knows all the tricks. She's going to teach you exactly how to do it, what words that you want them looking for, where you want them looking, how to get the right information, how to figure out what the teachers are hiding from you. So these are some of the things we're going to be doing on activelyunwoke.com. Please register for those webinars right now. Both webinars are free. They're webinars because they're going to be private. I'm not going to stream them on YouTube because I want people to be able to ask questions in a private setting. I will be recording them, but I'm going to do it in a way that's going to protect people's identities and things like that. I don't want anyone to get in trouble for daring to come to one of these webinars. But they are free. Space is limited. And I'll tell you that my webinar is already 20% of the way full. Nicole's webinar is like this far off from being 20% of the way full. So if you want to sign up, you want to make sure you do that as soon as possible. Get it out there. I don't think these are going to be the only ones I do, but I just want to make sure that everyone who wants to be in it can get a spot.